Alright, so quickly we'll recap what we talked about last time. And today the primary focus is going to be on sugar and the effects of sugar and fat loss. And then one of the most important things, which will be workout nutrition, both what you should be taking in before and after to get the results you want in terms of fat loss. That's primarily what we'll be focusing on. So when we're looking at, I wanted to touch on something because it will definitely get a little bit confusing. When we're talking about sugars and limiting your consumptions of sugars and processed foods, a lot of times people get really confused when the differences between sugars, like fruit for example, soda, and then processed sugars such as in refined sugars like sweets and candies and those type of things. The thing that people really need to understand is sugar is still sugar regardless of the source it comes from. Now granted, a banana is much better than a ho-oh, but it still has the same effect on your waistline and on your glutes. So what we want to understand is when to be able to take those things in, because there will be a time that's acceptable to take in those type of sugars. What we try to outline for you so you can understand is the purpose of eating 5 to 6 times a day and then having lean protein with each meal is it keeps your blood sugar level stable. So that's why we don't want that much sugar, okay, with the exception of breakfast and pre and post workout. So really that mid-morning snack, mid-afternoon snack, dinner, a little bit lighter on starches, a little bit heavier on vegetables and protein. And then what we're going to talk about today, the first portion will be now on sugars and processed foods. Then I'm going to spend the next segment talking solely about workout nutrition. So consumptions of sugars and processed food. So fructose, like I said, is a sugar. Sucrose is a sugar. Lactose is a sugar. Sugar is going to be in pretty much anything other than a protein or a vegetable and a fat. So anytime we're looking at any starch is going to have sugar, and they're going to be absorbed at different rates. And then fruit obviously is going to have sugar in addition to any kind of refined sweet. But as I said before, your body's going to react to everything the exact same way, regardless of what that sugar is or where it comes from. If it's outside of your workout window, your body's going to store that as fat, which is why we want to eliminate or limit our sugars throughout the day. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but if more times than not, we've got a little bit lower on the sugar, you're going to be fine. Now, people always ask how much sugar is too much sugar. This is where you have to start looking at food labels. Or we're going to have a whole class on food labels, how to decipher it, how to read it, and what they really mean, because they purposely try to trick you as marketing ploys. But typically, when sugars, 10 grams or less per serving is ideal when you're looking at sugars. When we're looking at these labels, for example, so you can understand what is considered low sugar, most of the time people think milk is a really healthy food and that it's, you know, a good protein and a moderate carbohydrate. If you actually look at the food label on milk, it's going to be 8 grams of protein, 12 grams of carbs, and about 11 to 12 grams of sugar. That means it's about 100% sugar. So when we're looking at things and we're trying to decipher if it's low sugar or not, we want half of the sugar content to come from 50% of the carbs. Meaning, if milk's 12 grams of carbs, it needs to be 6 grams or less of sugar to be considered a low sugar item. Okay? So when you're looking at some of your snack options, and we'll have a whole section on what snack foods are best, what's the fastest, easiest, healthy stuff you can get, because I know we're busy, we don't always like to cook. That's what we're looking at, is keeping that sugar pretty much as low as you can throughout the day. But the good news is, you don't need to count sugar grams, because if you eat how we've outlined, taking in the protein before the sugar is going to slow the absorption anyway, so that sugar is not going to affect you as badly if you had it by yourself, or if you'd had the sugar by itself. So especially when we combine it with a healthy fat, we can slow down the glycemic response this food is going to have on the fat cells, which is what we're after. We'll have a whole section on glycemic response as well. So again, sugars, regardless of the source, is still sugar. Okay, I don't care when people say, well, it's raw sugar, it's natural sugar, it comes from honey. It does not matter. Your body reacts to all of the sugar the exact same way. And I know people hate to hear it, but alcohol, your body reacts to that just like it was a soda. And it's still going to alter it in other ways. But we will have a whole section next week on alcohol, on which ones to drink, which ones to stay away from, and how to manage it effectively, especially when your goal is fat loss or just stay in tone. So when we're looking at, again, the alcohol pieces, which we'll just kind of touch on really quickly. Juice should always be sugar-free, okay? Don't get fooled when they're talking about the labels, like for your kids, no sugar added. It still has a lot of sugar in it, and that's what we want to avoid. Soda should be diet, and it really should be limited. There's a lot of studies that show that your body will react to soda, to diet soda, the same way it will with regular soda, okay? It's so sweet that it tricks your body into reacting the same way it would as a normal sugar that comes in, where it's kicking out that insulin. So like we talked about last week, anytime insulin is active, your body's going to go into a storage mode. And if it's outside of this workout window, your body's going to store fat. So that's why we want to keep the sugars somewhat down and normal throughout the day, because your body will not store fat throughout the day. Okay? So when we're looking again at the alcohol piece, really with the alcohol, beer is one of the worst ones. Some of your clear liquids, and then drinking it with, should we update our antivirus? Keeping the clear liquid and update it with like diet soda, diet water, diet tonic water, those type of things that are low sugar. That's really what we're after. The other piece people get really confused on will be starches. So breads, pastas, rices, those type of things obviously are starches. When fat loss your goal, one of the things you really need to watch will be some of the starch intake. The main reason why is they're very high glycemic, which means your body can absorb them really quickly and store fat. And the other reason is they're very easy to overeat on. A little bit of a starch goes a very long way in terms of calories. So like we mentioned last week, like a fifth of a cup of rice, which is like the size of your pinky, is equivalent to a whole bag of spinach leaves. So the benefit of eating more fruits and vegetables, besides the fact that your digestive system would function better and you would process fat easier, is you get to eat more. Okay? Starches, like even for example, like most people don't understand, like the bowls that you have in your kitchen are designed for 2 cups. So whenever someone tells me that they had a bowl of cereal, I always ask, did you fill it to the top? Most of the time the answer is yes. So they had 4 times the recommended serving of whatever that starch was. Compound that 2 or 3 times a day, by the end of the week you've had 10 times the amount of starches you should have had. So those extra calories will really add up. We'll come back to and forget alcohol, but any calorie-containing beverage, on average is about 150 calories or so, most of the time, per serving. So keep in mind there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. We have a few of these extra servings a week. It's very easy to almost put on a pound of fat a week without really knowing it. So those are the things that when we really get into this, we're not going to make you count calories. We're going to watch food choices, and then we're going to tweak it as needed to get the results that you want. Okay. And we'll go on to the next portion real quick.